Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Eswar Veluri. Eswar is the Chief Technology Officer of Equinox, a high-performance lifestyle consortium of brands, which earns in excess of $8 billion in annual revenue. Eswar has been with the company for 13 years and has held the role of CTO for roughly 2. Across his tenure, he's led remarkable transformation in product design, product management and engineering, data engineering, and data analytics, among other areas. I look forward to hearing more about his tenure at Equinox through this conversation. Eswar, welcome to Technovation. Great to speak with you today.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here and very exciting for me to join you today.
It's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to the conversation. Well, hey, let's talk about Equinox. I mentioned a high-performance lifestyle consortium of brands. Certainly, a lot of people would know it as a fitness organization, but that's not quite everything. To peel back the onion for us a little bit further to describe the business you're in, please.
Yeah, so definitely. So, obviously it started out with the Equinox clubs that all of you are familiar with. We have about 105 of them, if I got my number right, with a couple more opening later this year in US, Canada, and England. And then in addition to that, we own SoulCycle, which I think everyone is familiar with its brand of boutique cycling studios. Blink Fitness, which plays more in the economy end of the sector, and then one of our very best that we are proud of, which is Equinox Hotels, which is there in Hudson Yards, and it's been rated #1 hotel in New York for kind of a couple of years running. So we're very proud of that. And we used to have kind of a couple of travel related and lifestyle related endeavors that have been affected with COVID, but otherwise, kind of like we see ourselves as playing more in the lifestyle of consumers throughout.
And you come to the CTO role with a lot of experience in product. I mentioned some of that in terms of product design, product engineering, product management. Talk a bit about your pathway to the CTO role, and also, if you wouldn't mind, just a bit about your purview as Chief Technology Officer.
Definitely. I think my entire career has been slightly meandering. I spent about 10 years in semiconductors, and through that got an interest in consumer experience with digital electronics, where I worked on Sony PlayStation and other stuff. So wanted to kind of understand how user needs are actually met by the products and work we do. So I joined Equinox in 2010 and worked on creating the website and how we might actually sell memberships online. At that particular point, every transaction was done only at the club and not digitally. So that's kind of my foray into Equinox and trying to figure out how do we actually digitize some of the practices that were purely analog. Any digital journey first starts with digitizing certain things that now computers can do, and you don't need human beings to do them. But that's just stage one. And I think then in next stages, you're trying to kind of come up with ways to actually improve upon the customer experiences. And as you start taking that route, I think what I began to realize is that it's not just product that can lead the charge. You have to have a broader understanding of how does the data play into it? How do I come up with engineering solutions that make the performance of the final product be on par with the luxury establishment that we want to be? And as my interests and my forays into those areas grew, my responsibility also kind of grew organically. Kind of as you mentioned, I've been here for 13, and it took about 11 years to go from being a product manager to being a CTO, which also shows the pathways that this company has provided me in terms of growth, but also just my overall interest in those areas. And I think you asked about my purview. Purview generally is anything to do with technology, right? And nowadays, technology is everywhere. So it's almost like describing anything to do with electricity or something as pervasive. But primarily, we're trying to acquire, new members. We're trying to engage our existing members compared to most other gyms, and I'm not saying all gyms, which are in the business of we just want to kind of get people, and then if they're tried at a high rate, we don't care. It's actually better if they do not realize that they're paying for a gym. We are the opposite. We believe that high engagement is actually what we need from our members, and we go out of our ways to nag people to want to use our clubs, because the more they achieve the results, the happier they are with our overall products and services. And that's kind of what we believe in. So most of it comes, at least my area is, how do I keep members engaged? How do we make sure that the goals that they express, the results that they wanted, how do we provide those results to them? And the personalities are very, very different. You have young people, slightly older people, people who are social, people who might not want group fitness classes, and so on. So the personalization, which has been the name of the game for the last 10 years, how do you achieve that at scale, where if I open the app, will each person's experience be different that day? We're not there yet, but we're definitely kind of on the path to getting there. But that is how we want to be able to kind of cater our products and services to each member at their personal level.
I really like that. A number of topics that you mentioned there that I'd love to dive a little bit further into, from digital customer experience to customer engagement to personalization. As you described your business, so much of it is physical. And yet, as you highlight, there are so many ways of engaging customers to ensure that they are, optimizing their membership, their involvement with the company in one form or another. I'd love to have you provide some examples, if you would, as to the methods that you and your team have used in order to provide that encouragement.
So, it starts with either you're solving a problem that they have, right? Like we think of it as jobs to be done, and jobs to be done is the framework. What job are we solving for? So one case is like a very simple thing. When you're trying to check in during peak times, there's a line of people. You have a front desk, and you need to go through the desk area for the sake of making sure that you have a membership to be able to walk in. But how does that not become a choke point? COVID was like a good accelerator to this, where we have a simple iPad acting as a beacon that allows a member to be able to check in with their phone as long as they're within 6 feet. And we sped up the process of check-in, quite rapidly. So that's the job to be done. Then you go with, okay, now how can we improve the experience, right? And you can take a question of, you might want to have a chat with the front desk associate in the morning with just wanting to know how things are going and what classes are there today. But you might have 5 other members who just want to get to the treadmill very quickly and hit the showers and go do their work. So how do we allow our front desk associates to know what kind of an experience do you want, the basic levels of data about you, so that they can help you best? That is now going to the next level of actually improving your experience and understanding what the nature of our members is and how do we greet them, and who might prefer a conversation, who might not prefer a conversation. Then if you're going to the treadmills, everyone has, or most people have, like an Apple Watch, but Apple Watch only has certain fidelity of data. So we try to kind of like say, what do members want out of their cardio experience? Everybody wants to kind of keep track of the progress they've made, the data that they have. But our original attempts were type a phone number or type a username and password to log into the treadmill. And even though we calculated that it might only take 30 seconds for them to do it, the 30 seconds was too long, right? 30 seconds was way too long for us to get enough adoption from members, where now we made our solution to be as simple as you just kind of like scan your phone. It takes 1 second and you're logged in. We have to understand what do our members, and we call our customers members, want. And we have to make sure that the solutions that we are providing to them are kind of catering to their specific needs. And those needs will be different. And the last example I'll use in terms of how we are, kind of like providing solutions in especially that physical digital space, is that we have a cycling class called Pursuit, which takes gamified data. So you could be someone, you're writing a class, and then you're seeing your data on the leaderboard with like unique visuals and graphics. And suddenly the room is divided into two, right? Team A and Team B. Team A is on the left side, Team B is on the right side. For the next 5 minutes, you're collectively trying to beat the other team. So your numbers are being shown. And even if you were feeling low that day, during those 5 minutes, we've seen that everybody writes their best because there is something that happens where you do not want to let your teammates down. So how do you kind of create those experiences which make someone's performance go higher and feel some sense of validation that they're kind of contributing to their team win, which helps with overall fitness goals. So these are all ways in which technology can help with the primary experience, which is still the physical establishment, but making certain things easy, the customer experience to be better, and then helping them achieve the goals in a better way.
And you've talked about helping members achieve micro goals. An example you gave to me was like fitting into a tuxedo or a dress for a wedding versus macro goals. I'd like to, lose weight for the long term to increase my health and longevity, increase my muscle mass, whatever those goals might be. Can you talk a bit about that process? As you point out, obviously this is an opt-in. I'm sure you've got some members who do not provide any data and simply work out as they choose. But obviously there's a lot of advantages to the members as there are to the company, and understanding what are your goals, as no two people have exactly the same ones. Talk a bit about that process, if you would, of that engagement. How does the engagement happen? How much of it do you think about as like a trainer or a person at a desk engaging someone to enter that information versus them doing so through an app, for example?
Anytime you have a new member who comes into our club, if they're joining for the first time, and then sometimes we also do this for existing members, we have a process called EquiFit, which is our unique assessment of physical and goals. So here is where a trainer is actually conducting like about a 45-minute, 60-minute session with you, where they're talking through your both micro and macro goals, right? Like they're talking, do you have like a half marathon that you're trying to complete? Are you trying to just get fit for the summer? Or some people might be recovering from like a chronic back surgery or prenatal, postnatal. So you're trying to get through the gamut of your goals, aspirations, your personalities. But we're also doing a base level assessment of your fitness, to understand what is your functional movement score, what is your body fat percentage, and all of this to be able to help provide a personalized program that helps the customer achieve their goals. So we think of program as basically the core tenet of how we help you get from A to B. The program is something very simple. I'm not a fitness professional, but I can describe it as it's generally 28 days, and it has active days and recovery days, because recovery is extremely important. You cannot, do 7 active days. It actually is worse than having 4 active days and 3 recovery days. So the science of coaching that Equinox has established, and we're good at it, how do you then take that science and make sure that you can create a program that the customer can adhere to on their own, or with a trainer to help make sure that they're doing things right? And the programs are structured to be able to, you might have a running program, you might have an endurance program, and you might have a fitness program. There's level 1, level 2, level 3, and many variations of it. But I'll provide one other detail which will help with that micro validation, right? So it could be as simple as after the 3rd week, you might have noticed that your dumbbell now went from 30 pounds to 35 pounds. Most people don't think of that as, my God, that's like something changed. You're still looking at your weight or body fat as indicators to your progress, but helping track the reps, the amount of time that you might be on a plank, or the weight that you're able to lift, show the customer a sense of progress, that they're kind of embarking on a journey towards that. So these programs are meant to be, you can do them on your own, you can do them with a trainer, and those are at the hallmark of helping you achieve your results through this periodic assessment. So then the last thing towards the program is you also have a benchmark. So you establish a benchmark and say that, it could be as simple as, I want to deadlift 250 pounds. Every month, you're measuring against that benchmark to show how you're progressing towards your final benchmark, along with some of the progress that we are indicating to you along your journey.
And obviously, an important aspect of that is data. Being able to collect data and actually having sound data practices within your organization to do something extraordinary with the data that you collect. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your own data program and strategy, and even the role that, for example, artificial intelligence plays in facilitating what you've described as well.
Sure. So from a data standpoint, it's a complicated problem, right? I don't think anyone has solved it, and we definitely haven't solved it. There are certain things that are very easy, like when does a member check in? How often do they check in? What their goals are? Things that are provided are easy to capture because the physical processes require the data to be collected, and because it's a closed system, the data is very clean. Then once you enter a club at 8 o'clock to figure out what did you do for the hour, that's a challenge of epic proportions, because you could be on the mat doing some stretch, you could be on cardio, you could be doing strength, you could be doing kettlebell, you could be doing dumbbell, you could be doing a curl, you could be doing something else. What is the importance of all that data? How easy is it to capture? I think that's still a journey that we are on. We definitely have made more progress with cardio, because cardio is a machine and it has a bigger footprint, which allows us to be able to capture data. At any point, there's one person on the treadmill and you can understand who the person is and how much they've run. Whereas if you have 5 people who are doing kettlebells, it's a complex problem, and a kettlebell is such a small piece of equipment that it's tough. So we are still trying to kind of come up with mechanisms where how do we help the member, right? Because at the end of it, a member is not going to do something unless there is some utility in it for them. And how do we make the process easy and create utility? So once all of the data is there, to the point we talked about, it is to help show progress, it is to help challenge the customer, it is to help them nudge, it is to personalize the different, kind of, if you were, as an example, you ran for 6 miles today on a treadmill, then in the evening, the app should recommend some stretching for you for tomorrow, right? To basically help you. If you're trying to take a cycling class tomorrow, I should be like, that's probably a bad idea. You just ran 6 miles today. So, you should ideally be taking a different class that is low in cardio, but maybe higher in strength. So that's how we are using the data, is to be able to inform the member on what they should be doing to help further them along their journey. The artificial intelligence concept, I think, is still something that we are grappling with. And we have recommendation engines. We definitely use Amazon Personalized to be able to provide exactly the recommendations, such as, you taken cycling class A, we recommend you take yoga class B, because we know that many people have taken that. We also measure what you like and what you do not like. And if you've never ever taken a yoga class, then we will not recommend a yoga class to you, because you made it very, very clear to us that you do not like a yoga class. So we're able to track the impressions and so on to be able to personalize the experience. At scale, I think if we, reached a point where we wanted to use the data to be able to come up with new exercises and new programs that are generated through a machine, we can do it, but at our core, we believe that our trainers and coaches are very important, and they provide the difference in terms of just you training, on your own versus accountability, a professional who can help you with your form and a professional who can guide you. So I think, we're going to go on this pathway slowly, but definitely we have a team that is investing time and effort to figure out what might be the best use cases that would solve problems for us as an organization.
It strikes me, Ishwar, that yours is a company where you and your team can experience the quote unquote product and services. And I wonder to what extent you view that as an opportunity to, of course, experience what it is the company does, but also to develop new ideas on how things can improve.
It is the number one hiring reason. I'm surprised and happy that you asked about that, because both, like where I work and then, there's another office in New York, both those offices are about 20 feet from our clubs. So we actually locate our physical offices in a way where, depending on your schedule, you work out during the day, you work out during the middle of the day, but you work or in the evening. But we strongly encourage our employees to experience the products and services, because to your point, if I as a user have a tough time, kind of like achieving my results or using the club, or there's a problem with the treadmill or the technology that we've created, it gives us such a unique opportunity to discover the problems that we need to solve, right? And the second part of it, which I think is really unique for us, is most companies, when they're trying to do user research on, is this a good idea? Do people like this idea? You have to recruit audiences that are like audiences that might be like the people who might be using your product. There's so many mites there. Whereas our head of consumer research who works for me, she just walks into the club, and talks to like 5 or 6 people who are by the lounge and goes, hey, I lead this thing, can you talk about the new feature that we have? And they will explain what they like, what they don't like. That closed loop system between us and our consumers and our is extremely critical for us to be able to make sure that our ideas are not kind of going into the left field, but are kind of close to meeting the needs of our members and helping them along their journey. So that's an extremely important facet of our jobs, and we enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, very interesting. We've already talked about, Ishwar, a number of trends, data-centric trends, the use of artificial intelligence, just to name a couple, personalization, et cetera. As you look to the future, what other trends are making their way onto your roadmap that have you particularly excited?
I think it's the general health and visualization, right? So, I think Apple recently announced that they have a new health coach that's going to come on that will talk about, how to improve their health and activities and so on. And if some of this type of APIs become a little bit more commoditized, I think it can help us actually add that extra layer in our product to be able to provide the recommendations that are available in our clubs for our members based on kind of like their activity and so on. So I think rather than thinking of Apple Health and the services that they provide as somehow being a threat to us, we are of the mindset of how do we leverage that? They've done the hard work, and now we can take those kind of like insights and then help our members best achieve the results based on those insights. I think with OpenAI, even though we talked a little bit about it, I think OpenAI has so many areas that we can take advantage of, like including customer service, right? Like things that if you look at, 8 questions and answers that take to get to the root of the problem, I think, OpenAI definitely has an ability to make service quicker, more efficient. It is not about replacing, but just kind of like making certain processes faster to be able to help our members, kind of get their questions answered very quickly. So that definitely, I think, artificial intelligence and I'm just using OpenAI because that's what we've played around with more than anything else, helps solve n number of problems without thinking of it as this is just like replacing something that a human does, as much as we think of it as a co-piloting type of mechanism, which helps us to be able to get to the destination quicker rather than kind of on the slow lane. The other trend that I think is a little bit remarkable is the whole concept of like CDP, and we use Braze and we use a lot of personalization tools. I think they're becoming smarter in terms of us being able to take advantage of more real-time personalizations. So today, whatever activity you did, how do we kind of conduct mass level data science very quickly to be able to kind of like provide the next best thing for you rather than running it as like a batch job where every hour we're able to process things. So just the computational speed of being able to do things that used to take a lot of server time years ago, I think just the pace at which that is improving is kind of like thrilling to me. I took a screenshot recently when I started working. The transistor width was 250 nanometers. That's kind of like my first transistor that I worked on was 250 nanometers in 1998. This year, the transistor width is 2 nanometers. That explains at least kind of like what I've seen in terms of, because you can almost equate every progress that we've been able to make as a general civilization in the spirit of technology to that one particular dimension, because every time that gets smaller, things are able to run faster with less voltage. The computational, kind of like dynamics help us create experiences at a much faster pace. So that's like one way to visualize, what we can do and the potential of what we can do with what the technology has kind of like afforded us, in 2023.
It's a great overview. Appreciate you reaching back into your past as well, as having had experience with the foundational technology to explain how things have progressed. Very, very interesting. The other question I wanted to ask you, Ishwar, was, as somebody who's risen to a role of such consequence, and your descriptions across this conversation certainly underscore the fact that that's the case. What have been some of the secrets to your ascent career-wise? Especially tuned perhaps to others who might be watching or listening to this, who might wish to have a career that looks a little bit like yours. What have been the difference makers along the way for you?
It's a good one. See, I think when you start out, there is no set goals of like at one day I want to be like a CTO or something. At least I did not have that. I know in my team, as I now am in the mentoring side of things, there are people who are very, very clear right now on, like that's my end goal, right? But whether that's your set goal or you're just trying to get to the next level, I feel that what has worked for me is we call it a little bit of like a servant leadership type personality, which is that when there is grunt work, and I use grunt work not in a pejorative way, but sometimes there is just grunt work, I have made it a point where I tell my team, I'll take care of it. Why don't you work on something, that's a little bit more important because I can't do the job that you're doing, but I can definitely, copy this data and stuff. So I've always used that as a way to help people understand that you're never too big for your job, right? Like you kind of always have to understand, and obviously your level of understanding is going to decrease as you keep going higher up in the ranks, but you have to keep a pulse on what is happening everywhere in the team. And obviously my team is not as big as much larger corporations, but I've been able to generally have an overview and a pulse on things that are kind of happening. And I've always, whenever I felt there was an opportunity to help in a particular area, did not feel like I need to kind of like hold myself back. I would raise my hand and say, oh, I can do that. And I think that definitely opened doors to me because I came with a very specific background, right? And if I've never done software engineering as a professional, to be running engineering without that is a mark of someone generally recognizing that even if I did not know how to, kind of like comment and pull reviews and everything else, I had the ability to help achieve the best efficiency out of the engineering team. So you have to realize what your strengths are and you have to play to those strengths, but also be open about your weaknesses. Don't try to just make up stuff. I didn't go into like an engineering meeting and just make up some BS that I learned, from Google that day. I would actually more the opposite, where I will clearly tell guys, this is an area that I'm not good in, but can you help explain to me why we are doing this? And opening yourself in that way actually helps people relate to you better. So to me, at least kind of what I view as my strength, and what it's not even a strength as much as my fundamental tenet is team, just kind of like helping to know what everybody does. How do I put people in the best position to succeed? Because you might have, to use like a baseball analogy, you might have a pitcher, who's a starting pitcher, but now doesn't, kind of deliver on those. But can we make him a reliever? What do we do? And I think having open, honest conversations help me deliver more out of my team than, not. And that helps kind of like not just my ascent, but it also helps everyone in my team has grown. So, kind of like there are people who worked with me for 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, and all of them have grown from being an engineer to head of engineering, being a project manager to head of data, being someone else. And that is more prideful to me than my own title of being a CTO.
What an inspiring story of diagnosing what's worked well with you, but also the coaching role you're playing to make sure that the lessons are accessible for others to take advantage of as well. Eswar Veluri, thank you for a great conversation. It's been a pleasure to hear more about your experience across 13 years at Equinox, the remarkable transformations that you have led, the numerous strategic aspects of your plan to help a member experience grow and expand and become more pleasurable for those people who are in fact your members. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. I enjoyed it very much.